Okay, here we have a outlook for 2021 for the dairy sector, and this outlook for 2021 reflects the trade and cooperation agreement that was reached between the European Union and the UK in December of 2020. So the agreement changes are forecast for 2021 on the basis that a free trade agreement is in place now. While there are other trade frictions, it's much more preferable from the perspective of the Irish ag sector to have an agreement in place that doesn't involve any tariffs. So what does the outlook for 2021 look like? At the global level, things are in reasonably good shape. From a dairy perspective, we see continuing supply growth globally being matched by continuing demand growth. That also assumes, of course, that COVID-19 does abate as we get further through the year. To date, it hasn't had a huge impact on the demand side, which is in contrast to what some people had anticipated near the start of the pandemic. So we should have relatively stable international dairy price outlook in 2021. From a specific Irish point of view, we're forecasting a continuing increase in milk production in Ireland in 2021 of about 3%. The milk price outlook for Ireland looks slightly positive. So we should see a milk price of around 35 cents per litre on an actual constituents basis, VAT inclusive, in 2021. But we should also see production costs increasing in 2021, also compared to 2020. If we take a look at those briefly, we're talking about an increase in the total cost of production in 2021 of about 3% on a per litre basis. And that comprises of increases in feed prices of about 3%, increase in expenditure on pasture and forage of about 6%, which is mainly made up of a 10% price increase in fertilizer. We also see electricity and fuel expenditure increasing in 2021, largely on the basis of higher fuel prices. Bit of an increase in overhead costs, and we don't see any change in the other direct costs taking place. So collectively, that gives us about a 3% increase in the total cost of production on a per litre basis in 2021. Looking at the implication for margins, so we see the output value, the gross output value, increasing in 2021. That's essentially the value from the sale of milk, increasing in 2021 compared to 2020. But we also see higher costs of production in the system. And what that all means in the end really is that the net margin is not going to change a whole lot, we think, in 2021. So it'll be in around €1,300 per hectare is the kind of margin, the average net margin we're forecasting for 2021. Important to emphasize here as well that the 2020 figures are an estimate. We won't have final 2020 figures for a few months yet till we have the results of the 2020 National Farm Survey. So 2021 in summary, continuing increase in milk production, continuing increase we would anticipate also in the dairy cow population. Bit of a bump upwards in the milk price, but nothing to get too excited about. We see higher costs of production in the system, a fall in the net margin per litre, slightly of about 3%, which will be offset by the increase in the volume of production, and no change in the net margin per hectare taking place. So overall, a very stable story for 2021 for the dairy sector. So in summary, we see that 2020 was a remarkably uneventful year. In spite of COVID-19, we had stable milk prices. Ultimately, in 2020, and we saw a fall in some of the key production costs that allowed an increase in the net margin and farm income. And 2021, we're not seeing too much happening. we're seeing that the Brexit deal provides a bit of certainty for the sector in terms of a stable international dairy product price outlook, a little bit of an uptick in the milk price in Ireland, but offset by higher production costs, so that we end up with no change in net margin per hectare and a little bit of a reduction in the margin per litre, offset by the increase in the volume of milk produced. So that's pretty much our summary for 2021 for the dairy sector.